occupations in Iraq and Afghanistan. The corporate media largely ignored the story. For the past few days, we've been broadcasting their voices. Today, we continue with former Staff Sergeant Camilo Mejia.
My name is Camilo Mejia. I joined the military in 1995 as an infantryman. And I deployed to the Middle East in March of '03. First to Jordan and then to Iraq in April of that same year. The first mission that we had when we got to Iraq was at this place called Al-Assad, and our job there was basically to run a prisoner of war camp. And at this prisoner of war camp, our job was basically to keep prisoners who have been deemed enemy combatants sleep deprived for periods of up to 72 hours in order to, quote-unquote, soften them up for interrogation. And the way we did that was by yelling at them. So my first question to the people who were training us on how to do this was, how do they understand? I mean, they don't speak English. And he said, well, they're just like animals, they're just like dogs. If you keep yelling at them, it doesn't matter what language you're yelling at them in, they're going to get the point. If you yell at them, get up enough times, just like a dog gets up, they'll get up. If you tell them to move left, eventually they'll get it and they'll move left. And they said, but that's not going to always work because they're so tired. By the way, they were hooded with sandbags and they were tied with plastic restraints, barefoot, and circled around with concertina wire. So they were not only being deprived of sleep, but also of light and a sense of space. And so the next thing that we did was to hit the wall next to them with a sledgehammer to create this explosion-like sound to scare them. And when that didn't work, the next step was to put a gun to their heads and to charge it as if to execute them. Basically, we were performing mock executions to scare this man. And every now and then that wouldn't work, so you would grab the person who was not obeying and put him in a chamber and hit the wall next to this person to basically drive him insane and get them to obey. Another time, I remember we were at a traffic control point and we had received reports of ambulances being used to deliver explosives. So we were really close to the only, we were actually blocking the only road that led to the hospital, to the local hospital, and this ambulance came upon our traffic control point and they told us that we could not let the ambulance through. There was a pregnant woman who needed to get to the hospital, but they said, we don't know if that's a pregnant woman or if this is, a van, full of explosives and it's going to explode. So we basically turned it back. And I remember at the time I felt bad and I wanted to send a team to basically to search the van and to establish whether there really was a pregnant woman. But I kept thinking of the images of the ambulance exploding in the perimeter and killing a bunch of our people. So I basically made the decision not to search the van and to just turn it away. Another time, we were, again, at a traffic control point, and we were attacked, and we were in the middle of a firefight, and then they stopped shooting at us, and we began to assess the damage and to, collect our wounded, and there were a lot of Iraqi civilians who were killed. And from this car came a voice that was calling me, Mister, Mister. And I approached the car, and again, we had this intel report saying that at traffic control points, people will call you and say, help me, and then they'll shoot you or the vehicle will blow up. So when I'm approaching this car, and right after this firefight, and then after this happened, then they began shooting at us again. But as I approached this car, I saw that there was this young man at the driver's seat, and that there were two older gentlemen who were also wounded, one pretty badly, and who were saying, help me. And at the time, all I could think about was the intel report saying, these people are trying to kill you. So I basically had my rifle aimed at them, and I was about to shoot him until somebody came and said, Sergeant, they're wounded, don't shoot at them. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's almost impossible to act upon your morality in a situation like that when you have been fed all this information that, you know, these people are out there to kill you. And what you do is you basically remove the humanity from them to make it easier to oppress them, to brutalize them, to beat them. And in doing so, you remove the humanity from yourself because you cannot act as a human being and do all of these things. And one last incident that I want to talk about was the first time that I opened fire on a human being, and this happened right after a protest. They were throwing grenades at us, and they said, you know, if anybody throws a grenade, you know, you open fire on them. So we saw this coming, and I saw this young man, basically, you know, his arm was swinging, and he had a black object in his hand, which was indeed a grenade. And I remember seeing all of this through the rear aperture of my M16 rifle sight, and I remember when we opened fire on him. And then I remember when two men came from the crowd and basically dragged them by his shoulders back into the crowd after we killed them. And after that incident, I remember going into a room by myself and counting the rounds that I had left in my magazine, and I had 19 rounds left, which meant that I had fired 11 rounds at this person, and but yet I had no recollection of hitting him or him going down, him dropping, him dying. There's this blank space in my memory, which is a blank space that I have for other experiences, like this time when this child was basically riding in the passenger seat with his father, and we decapitated his father with a machine gun. And when we went down to the low ground to search for enemy wounded, I remember seeing this young person standing next to his body that was decapitated. And when I think about it, I cannot remember the expression on the child's face. I cannot remember that it was a child. I only know this because people told me later on that was the man's son, the man's young son, who was standing next to the body. And it's because not only it's not enough to dehumanize the enemy by means of your military background or training or the indoctrination or the heat and the fatigue and the intensity of the environment. But there are times when it is so hard to deal with these experiences that I suppose your own body, your own psyche, in order to protect you from these memories and in order to protect you from losing your humanity, erases certain memories that are too painful to deal with, that are too overwhelming to deal with. And whether it is to punish the men in your squad or the men in your unit, or to erase the face of a child whose father was decapitated next to him in a car at a traffic control point, or whether it is to pose next to a dead civilian or Iraqi or whoever, it is necessary to become dehumanized, because war is dehumanizing. And we have a whole new generation. We have over 1 million Iraqi dead. We have over 5 million Iraqis displaced. We have close to 4,000 dead. We have close to 60,000 injured, both by combat injuries and non-combat injuries coming back from this war. And that's not even counting the post-traumatic stress disorder and all the other psychological and emotional scars that our generation is bringing home with them. So all that just to say that war is dehumanizing a whole new generation of this country and destroying the people in the country of Iraq. In order for us to reclaim our humanity as a military and as a country, we demand the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all troops from Iraq, care and benefits for all veterans, and reparations for the Iraqi people so they can rebuild their country on their terms.
Former Staff Sergeant Camilo Mejia served 6 months in Iraq in 2003 with the Florida Army National Guard. After a brief leave, he refused to return. He was court-martialed and served nearly a year in prison. He's now the chair of the board of Iraq Veterans Against the War, the organization that sponsored the Winter Soldier hearings. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. Back in a minute.
Shape this land, wish So we can do just one more thing. We can all be free. Maybe not words, maybe not.
Cat power, maybe not. Here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, as we return